Hello friends. There are several very important facts about beneficial bacteria that we should know before we start with our new aquarium. Most folks though don't learn about it until after their first crash and after the loss of lots of fish. Then they go and find out about beneficial bacteria. Hopefully this video will help you to avoid that unfortunately too common learning curve. The old saying of closing the barn after the horse is gone, right? Let's see if we can skip that by knowing a few very key facts about beneficial bacteria. Let's right up front get rid of the myth that you need very expensive media to have a successful colony of beneficial bacteria. That's not true. Beneficial bacteria will grow on every surface in the aquarium and every surface in your filter, and it doesn't necessarily seek out expensive real estate or prefer the more expensive media. Now granted, some media does claim to have a lot more surface area, areas deep in the media that can be a lower water flow, less oxygen, and they use that to promote that they could possibly get a full cycle. In other words, they can help bacteria develop that will convert nitrate or ammonia into nitrite, and then nitrite into nitrate, and then also create the bacteria that will take that nitrate and gas it off. So you end up with an aquarium that runs at zero nitrates because of the media that you're using. Very often those claims come from people that sell that media. From time to time, you'll see independent fish keepers that have tested the media and have also gotten results that were favorable. Very often what will fail to be mentioned is how much of that media they had to use for the aquarium that they were using it on. For example, a very lightly stocked planted aquarium would probably get down to zero nitrates fairly easily, whereas a very heavily stocked African cichlid aquarium with no plants would need a tremendous amount, hundreds of dollars of that media to come anywhere close to being able to develop the kind of bacteria that will help convert nitrate back into a state where it just gases off and your nitrates go down to zero. So I personally don't go after that objective. I like to add fresh water to my aquarium, so I reduce nitrates with water changes. That adds minerals. Some say it reduces hormones. I think it affects water clarity. It brings about better color, better visibility in the aquarium. So I use water changes to reduce my nitrates. I don't rely on the media. Now that being said, in the 300 gallon behind me and in the 210 gallon to my left, I do have some Cera C-Porax media, and I also have some C-Chem Matrix. And both of those are considered exceptional types of media. Do I rely on them to reduce nitrates? Not necessarily. And I certainly don't have the volume of it in the sumps or in my canister filters. That I have sumps and canisters on both of these tanks that would come close to reducing nitrates. So what do? I rely primarily on a deep substrate for a colony of bacteria. Now the bacteria growing on the top of the substrate is going to get a lot of water flow and a lot of oxygen, but as you go deeper into a deep substrate, you're going to get less oxygen and perhaps a type of bacteria that can convert nitrate into a form to gas off. But I rely more on a deep substrate, and I rely more on sponges. My sumps, my canisters are mostly high quality sponges from Swiss Tropicals. These are Matin sponges that provide a tremendous amount of surface area. Rule number one, beneficial bacteria will colonize and grow on everything. And a corollary to that is be aware that you might never get to a point where you have the type of bacteria necessary to convert nitrates back down to zero to create what is sometimes referred to as the full cycle. And to me, that's not a bad thing, because adding fresh water to an aquarium is a good thing. A lot of you who watch my videos are veterans, you know all about this, but for those of you who are not, you need beneficial bacteria in your aquarium, preferably before you add fish. Because if you don't, the fish and the fish food and the poop is going to produce ammonia, and that ammonia will convert into nitrite, and that's going to be very hard on your fish and often kill your fish. This is why you can find a die-off after adding fish to an aquarium. There wasn't enough beneficial bacteria in the aquarium to support the amount of fish that you added. This can be particularly true with aquariums where you don't have plants that can help with the nitrates. Plants do consume ammonia. They love ammonia, and of course that, by extension, keeps your nitrite and nitrate low. But some of us can't have plants because we have fish that destroy plants, like South and Central Americans cichlids, or African cichlids like the ones here behind me. You simply can't have plants in those kinds of aquariums. So you have to rely on water changes and the bacteria that is developing in the deep substrate of the aquarium. So how do you get that going? There are several ways you can get your beneficial bacteria going. One is the adding of bacteria in a bottle, and this is where you buy something like a Fritz Zyme product that adds bacteria to the aquarium. And the mistake that people make when they do that is they don't immediately add a food source for the bacteria. The bacteria has to stay alive, has to start eating. So you immediately add a few fish. Don't overwhelm it with 3 dozen fish, because again, the waste production of the fish will outrun the beneficial bacteria. It will not kill off the bacteria. It will simply produce more ammonia, and conversely more nitrite than the bacteria can consume. So go easy. Add fish a few at a time. You can start increasing. The bacteria will gradually catch up. Test your aquarium, right? Make sure that you're not getting any readings on ammonia or nitrite. Aquariums are safe to add fish when you get 0 ammonia reading and 0 nitrite reading. Even so, you can still have a colony of bacteria that isn't big enough or strong enough to keep up with a large addition of fish all at once. So you go out, you find a dozen fish that you love, you bring them back to your new aquarium, which already has 1 or 2 fish in it, you add them immediately, and you have a few of them die off. Why didn't all of them die off? Well, what happens is, as some are dying off, the bacteria colony is growing, and it will eventually catch up. And so then all of a sudden the aquarium seems relatively stable. You do a water test, everything tests out okay, and then you send me an email and go, I don't get it. Every time I add fish, or I added some fish, they died. What happened? My test results are great. Well, what happened is your test results stabilized over that time period that the fish died. You removed them, you tried to figure it out, you did a water test, and now bacteria has grown in the aquarium, okay? So, try and get some bacteria going in that aquarium. Add your fish a little bit at a time, don't get over anxious. If you ever add a huge amount of fish at once, consider adding a little bit of a bacteria in a bottle product, or, and this is my preferred method, bring over seeded media from an existing aquarium. I just set up some quarantine tanks that were completely empty, sitting empty for over a month. I just set them up and got them able to support life immediately by adding seeded media that I brought over that was sitting in a filter in an established aquarium. So take some seeded media, or take some media like some pads, and stick them in the back of a hang-on back, and just let them sit there. And when you're ready to set up a new aquarium, or let's say you're going to have an aquarium that is coming in and you're setting it up in a month, put some pads in the hang-on back filter, Don't mess with them, leave them alone, and then pull them out, put them into the new filter for the new aquarium. You'll be good to go. Just be sure you run conditioned water through that filter, through those pads, because one of the common mistakes people do is they'll put seeded media or bacteria in a bottle in water that has not been treated with something like Fritz Complete or Seachem Prime, and the ammonia, chloramine, chlorine in that water will kill off the bacteria. And then you'll send me an email and say, hey, I tried Fritzyme 7 and everything died. Well, one or two things happened. Either you put the Fritzyme into an aquarium that wasn't treated and the chlorine killed it off, or maybe you had an expired bottle of Fritzyme. Those two things can happen. The other thing that can happen is maybe you overwhelmed it anyway with too many fish too fast. That's why patience is a very important part of starting up an aquarium. Those are my tips for beneficial bacteria. It's such a vital thing to know about, but unfortunately, many fish keepers don't take the time to learn about it until after a big die-off that they then discover occurred because they didn't have sufficient beneficial bacteria. And those are the ones that go and research it. A lot of them after that die-off simply leave the hobby. And I hope that this video helps to prevent people from leaving the hobby and understanding what's going on and having a successful aquarium. All right? So thank you so much for listening and tuning in. If you have any comments about beneficial bacteria, please share them below. We all learn from each other on this channel. If you want to talk about aquarium stability, beneficial bacteria, fish, food, filters, substrate, and everything else, join me on Saturdays for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's a great group of fish keepers that get together for about an hour every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central. If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit that bell if you're already subscribed. Check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because YouTube sometimes will unsubscribe you for no apparent reason. I don't know why they do it, but they do. If you want to take it one step further, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. It starts for as little as $3 a month, and it helps in more ways than you know. Okay? Thank you, my friends. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.